Situational irony is when what happens in the story contradicts the reader's expectations. In The Interlopers by Saki, Ulrich is in a forest when he encounters a rival of his family and plans to kill him, but instead they both get trapped under a tree and become friends. Some slightly awkward. I mean, it makes sense. I just feel like it could flow a little more. I wonder if you could say, um, in the Interlopers by Saki, Ulrich is in a forest when he encounters a. Or what if we just start with the Interlopers by Saki, and then let me switch to suggesting mode. The Interlopers by Saki is about Ulrich, and then maybe we could use his whole name, von Gradwitz. Whoops, not Witz, not Witz. Ulrich von Gradwitz, who encounters a rival of his family in a forest and plans to kill him. So what that'll be is The Interlopers by Saki is about Ulrich von Gradwitz, who encounters a rival of his family, and then maybe we could use his name. In a forest and plans to kill him. And then we could have a second sentence, right? Like, however, instead, they both get trapped under a tree and become friends. Right? So I feel like that just flows just a little bit more. You also get to use their names in there, both of their names, and their full names first, which is nice. Let's see where it goes from here. The Interlopers is a good example of situational irony because when Ulrich and George call for help, the reader thinks they will be rescued, but instead they are eaten by wolves. Right. I'm thinking. I feel like this thesis statement needs to have some mention of the word cooperation, because that's really the concept that leads to the irony, right? You would think that after resolving their differences, the men's cooperation would lead them to their survival. Ironically, of course, we know that's not the case. So, The Interlopers is a good example of situational irony. It contradicts the reader's expectations. So you don't really need to say that. We already know what that is. So you can go ahead and finish that right there. It might be nice in this sentence to find a way to say roughly where in the story the irony takes place. That will help you differentiate it from the thesis statement just above. At the end of The Interlopers, after Ulrich sees several forms, the text says this. Right, you don't need the this, you just have the text says. Who are they? Asked George quickly, straining his eyes to see what the other would gladly not have seen. Wolves. This is a good example of situational irony. This quote illustrates situation. Again, you don't really need to. You don't need to say this is a good example again, because presumably you've been saying that the whole time. This quote illustrates situational irony because when the reader expects them to be rescued, they are eaten by wolves. Again, this explanation I feel needs to include some mention of cooperation, and it should be a little bit different than your thesis statement, right? It needs to be a little more detailed. So see what you can do about that. As for your summary leading up to the quote, I'm feeling like we need just a bit more information. You need to mention that they're caught under the tree, they've resolved their differences, and they've decided to, kind of join forces, as it were, in a hunting call to alert their men to the fact that they're in trouble. Now, obviously, what I've just said is probably a lot longer than what you want there, but we need more information than just the fact that they see forms coming, right? We need to just hint at the situation as to why those forms are coming in the first place. The Interlopers is a great example of situational irony because when Ulrich and George are expected to be rescued, they are eaten. The irony in this story reinforces the theme, don't let your conflicts blind you to actual problems and danger. When Ulrich and George are ready to shoot each other, a tree falls on them, leading to their death. Yes, that is true, but this is not really the sentence that you want to leave your essay on, I don't think. you want something a little more general, right? And also, a lot of people seem really fixated on this, like, you know, this this tree thing, and I guess that kind of is the very moment that illustrates the theme in the story. But overall, generally, right, the men were behaving foolishly right from the get-go. They're in this dark forest. It's nighttime. It's winter, so the animals are hungry, and it's windy out. And so when you think about it, the very premise of the story is an example of the theme. So what you might say instead is that, if Ulrich and George had been able to keep their feud in perspective, they would have never behaved as foolishly as they did. All right, so Ben, let me know if you have any questions about any of these comments I made. I'd be happy to explain them to you. Please take care of all of the comments, not just the ones that I wrote down. There are many that I only spoke in this video that you're still responsible to fix for your grade. So please let me know again if you have any questions. I appreciate your effort on this, and I'm looking forward to the final draft.